Okay. Anyone not ready? Our argument is that anti-blackness is locked into place with the alienation of black labor and abstraction through the form of capital. Raising anti-blackness to ontological level ignores the contingency of capital base. That's SMR 18. The black form was already subsumed in monetary capital, form of capital, and the fictive substance of race ontological scandal was repeated with each instance of alienated black labor. Each time blackness functions as commodity form, Van Eagle's was of domination today, predicated on abstract reflection of black people body as a foreign currency to address this ontological scandal.
Pause.
Pause.
Anthony, can you mute your mic whenever during the speech? Because it's
Was
echoing.
it me?
Yeah,
It's echoing through you, and
I heard an echo.
Oh shit!
couldn't understand.
My
it,
bad.
so.
You want me to restart?
Yeah. So just start back up from where you were.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what the rules state to do, and we'll just say that was like 15 seconds off your tech time or whatever. So okay, we're good.
I'm trying to find. Okay. We must first think through how the black body is individualized as a currency within modern financial systems. The genesis of the black self is already informed by the logic of enumeration and speculative risk. The pre-individualized state of black being is always already contaminated by the conditions of labor-based capital accumulation. Financial domination will not merely a cycle, but a transaction of insurance risk. The enslaved body is underwritten as a spectacular risk capital. The black non-being is already owned by ontology. The problem with the biologist personal way compliance with the regime of typical capital exists with symptomatic of a larger logic of social quantification. The stuff of capital depart from the body. It has no longer become the actual slave. The financial gain was greater. So the body only becomes the black body was subsumed into capital risk. The AF's aesthetic resistance couples dangerously with the static interpretation of black women to enable tokenization. They become the resilient black subject who stand for their communities. That always positions the AF as antagonistic to those who fail to represent the ways and generate surplus for the representational economy. That's now 14. To represent can become to depict, speak for this perspective equation for speaking for depicting the loss for ideology to operate a rhetoric as suggesting it's always a space of intervention between the two sets of representation. However, they can and do align is the tendency to pull out and sync with each other. Any responsibility in space will be foreclosed. We understand political representation of bourgeoisie democratic terms. While politicians are elected as representatives, the role of violence of black artists, the consequences of racism of black artists become publicly visible. Their work is better because they are accountable for their communities and political autonomy, racial representation, the visibility of few token black figures, services to reproduce the invisibility or lack of access to public discourse of the community as a whole of structural racism of bourgeoisie. Publicity, not policing of black artistic expression produces burden of representation. Burden of representation cannot be mistaken for post-racial discourse. Post-racial seeks to deny that any link with the speaking for speaking as an unburdening representation will be a strategy of subverting tokenization mechanism to which community capitalism will reproduce invisibility to the guise of empowerment. The ass politics of remembering see the universal and local favor of local fragments of knowledge, rather the ability to find a future to neoliberal hegemony. The universal not inherently oppressive, but it will be unfettered capitalism to S17. A growing emphasis on fragmentation of singular literature politics to avoid totalizing genesis and structural analysis of capitalism versus scope between which is opposed to strategy being used to oppose the general disharmony. Capitalism power is therefore identified as totality on the other hand, the theories separate local fragmentary partial forms of knowledge, the only form available criticized thing for the potentially oppressive implications. The counter service is suitable basis for any politics seeking to contest the massive hegemonic positive of neoliberal capitalism, the persistent counter abstract anxiety, high over progressive politics, the a renewed appetite for ambitious and future oriented and masculine politics began to make its acceleration of possible intellectual infrastructure capable of creating a new ideology, economic, social models that can be exempted in advance of the enactment of re-visionary politics. Their call towards embodiment demonizes the abstract space of theorizing in favor of locking the political imagination to the here and now. All of the reasons why this embodiment is better, the reason why the alternative reclaims it from finite capital. That's B14. Abstract is a cascaded abstract policy of value abstraction has been permeating our everyday lives and function of force to denounce abstract and malevolent forces and that necessary role played by abstract and shaping the new modes of existence to denounce abstract and also deny any possibility for going to collect the money beyond what remains immediately perceptible. The weak cannot be reduced to the mechanical population of bodies correct the concretely experienced by abstract and accelerated to accommodate new ontological positions. The second alternative pulse refuse to adapt to changing epistemic conditions with more abstract signifies the truth. Abstraction and separation is towards it is
Pause.
Avoiding is
pause. Hold on.
Pause. Eric.
Hey, okay, yeah, he's decent. He's not having
a. let me text him.
Rip.
It says, yeah, I paused it. It's
okay. We got nothing, dude.
Wait, what?
For the last 50 seconds, like I couldn't hear anything. I think the connection was like slurring your speech.
And then you're like,
the thing popped up that said connection issues, and
okay.
All of you are frozen on my screen.
Okay. So I would like the last part that I had left off was about 425-ish, and then we were in the middle of the read 14 card.
Wait, I have 420. 3 at the moment. Okay. Middle of the read 14 card.
Well, I paused at 425, like the second you started cutting out significantly. So
Okay. So read 14. I'll start at like
so.
the stagnant alternative list pulleys.
I think
Does that
that's
work?
fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Lindblom, do y'all? Is that cool with y'all? Okay. Yep. I think we're good.
The stagnant alternative list pulleys refuse to adapt to changing epistemic conditions before abstraction signifies the abstraction indicates a drawing away abstraction and separation from which is towards what it could be. It is an affirmative violence existing as a condition and moving towards the generation of new connections that do. And with the world abstraction is experiment with revised relations, the capacity that needs to be reclaimed beyond its colonization. Avoiding institution building abdicates the potential for communal power and reduces revolution to static bursts of energy. That's Strenick and Williams 15. What should the future look like? What sets the left apart from the right is embracing the future quality. These terms neoliberalism version of modernity is held way ever since philosophers now assert that we have to resist the ideology of the future of such folk political sentiments, accept the neoliberal common sense from radical lefts discover modernity everywhere else today. The future is logically seated to the right. The broader impact of the cultural condition has not been the decline of belief in meta narratives, but abroad disenchantment with those offered by the left. Progress is not bound to a single European path and filtered through a variety of political and cultural constellations. The new visions of the future are necessary supplement to any transformative political project. In the absence of images of progress, economic reactivity, defensive battle, local resistance, the bucket mentality, progress must be understood hypersituationally, have a temporal form of will have been the such hyperstations of progress of oriented inevitably to navigate forward progress as a matter of political struggle. Neoliberal capitalism will produce extinction. The system reproduces crisis, the politicized left, undermined future thought, and postpone its demise. The impacts on environmental collapse and toward rise of fascism. Severe 15. We cannot hope to progress by appealing to some radical outside mass to use only what's available. Global warming and environmental pollution to undermine our world of life, world of life precarious. The world today is characterized below polarization, unemployment, and the search for new markets. The capital accumulation by exploitation, by exploitation, the subject of all aspects of life. That's flooded market. These processes work on a global scale. We live on a relentless environmental, financial, and social crisis become chaotic. Live in a state of perpetual contradiction. Crisis further after 2008, the big bang prevailed that allows us to resume the practices that led to the breakdown of the first place. Guaranteed the renewal of the crisis. Located to follow further that the crisis helped to reduce the war that abandoned the creative destruction. The capitalist produces surplus absorption. The future exists only to be colonized. The market seeks to deplete their future. Advanced function makes it nearly possible to keep every alternative. The alt is to affirm the model of the Communist Party. Only the party can provide effective accountability mechanisms to correct chauvinist tendencies, educate and mobilize marginalized communities to connect local struggles and move for international liberation. Let's escalate to 18. Base building dual power strategy best forward to party organization allows to solidify and apply for the revolution social tendency. Building is to make people need to demonstrate the communist avoid relief for capitalism to mobilize the base. We have already done the work of building the Communist Party. Is formally unified party like this democratic central decision making for holy party members accountable, unifying action for educating local power communities to organize fight for liberation. Party organization allows to organize to be held accountable laws, criticism of function with unity working together. Strategies help correct some ideas. Accountability is crucial. Imperialist colonial ideal for effect formal procedure allows us to address these consistent problems. Cut the card of problems. That's not a case. Our role of the bell is the affirmative has to offer an exploitable method to explain resolution net beneficial to status quo, and the alternative option, the negative has to prove a dissent to the method that outweighs the benefits of pay for the status quo, and to present a net beneficial mutually exclusive alternative method. This means you vote negative if by the two way or the app is only good for people who are inside debate. This best model for debate. What is method I think is good? Cost benefit analysis proves bad that and breath health, intellectual myopia. We only look at aspects of experience while we all have to look at two instances after balance with not being able to negotiate means app always wins. Cut the rest of that procedural. Capitalism puts a price tag on expression. It uses free expression, sanitizes violence, or repetitive creates spaces of contextual visibility, misses the boat because subjectivity has already been quantified. That's scope 16. The metropolis advances connectivity, liberal principles of communication, language, and cooperation. The capitalist corporation life and city software operates through soft technology, the cycle of extinction, intersection technology, body technology, commodify labor, the leads, double meaning, the liberal ideas, factors, free expression, touch space, the power, verbal photographic regime, puts pricing expression, guarantees more penetrating exposity, encounters our spaces, contingency, the merger of effects, remain a surprising power, speaks of the dialects, construction, physical place, cytobattlity, encounters contribute to the third dimension of metropolis pathology, prevent good encounters through hierarchies, the village polarization, Barbie, negative encounters, flexible, exploitation, photo, metropolis, portal, streets, metropolis, storm, the lack of pressure, like social environment, hostile to us, the dramatic, the storm matches the reality of the landscape of violence. Cut the card of violence. The understanding of identity recognition politics bypasses core question of capital communication. That is no longer termed by agency, but rather goes to by neoliberal practices that coping LOE 16. Technology, social performance, technical effort, social formation, draws the capacity for technology sessions to transform parts of my whole, particularly every part, transition for example, lending, spreading media, private forms, the general world, machines, treat the relationship, communication, develop, control, communication with the connect, distinctive, applying general logic structure, machine, and gender, different sensitivity, each realize different mode of communication agency is the power which results in individual being to the gap between themselves, the structure of representation, social world, and institutional demands. Cut the part of demands. We want to see assume the more dialogue and protests we have, the more radical they become, which ignores the power of disconnection, individual quality of identity, global protest against Rockwell's large post in history, no effect. What is the presentation of academia? Commodifies use of promote the supposed of diversity of the academy. I didn't get to the actual text of the card. I cut a lot of cards. I'll send the cut copy if you want.
Okay, give me 1 second to set my timer.
Would you like me to send the cut copy?
I'm good, but if Kat needs it. Okay. Yeah, you don't have to send it. We're fine.
Oh, perfect. All right. Open the class.
All right. Open?
Yep.
Okay, so my first question on the K, on your first card, if raising Blackness to an ontological level is bad, how should we understand Blackness?
Right. So we're saying that like Blackness should be understood through the idea. Well, first of all,
Wait, Eric, I can answer this. So the argument is that the first card talks about, the Amaro evidence talks about, this is our thesis claim. It's a thesis claim card that talks about that we should theorize the world through an understanding of racial capitalism. The reason for why we should understand violence through alienation and exploitation is that the Amaro evidence says that forms of capital extraction can exacerbate forms of anti-blackness, and it is important that we sort of have a metric to calculate how those sort of violences can operate. It's just the thesis claim card.
Okay, I guess my next question is like, in the world of the alternative, what does that do for the way that Black women are created as like fungible objects only viewed for their productivity? Like,
Right,
how does the
so
alt solve? That's my question.
Examples of the alternative include like the Lindblom Communist Project based in New
Not
York,
an example
which
of
is,
the alternative, an example of how the alternative specifically can resolve the affirmative.
yeah, like things like redistribution of resources, healthcare for Black women. Those are
So healthcare
important
for Black women is
resources.
going to prevent Black
focused on.
women from becoming fungible objects.
It's a
Even
political
so,
project that seeks to mitigate the harm that Black women faces.
right, and we're arguing
Okay.
that like having these material changes is important, even if you have a underlying structural claim. Like that
Yes,
doesn't mean that material change
anti-Blackness
doesn't
Alright,
and the
matter.
violence that
cool.
Black
I
women
have
face is
another question
ongoing,
real
but we
quick.
think this is good because it mitigates a set of contingent harms.
Okay. All right, cool. Also real quick, Kat, can you mute me on your side? Because I can hear the echo. But anyways, my next question. Okay, so what part of the K is mutually exclusive from the affirmative? Because why isn't the Combahee River Collective an exact example of the alt?
Okay, so first we would say that the 1AC did not present a blueprint or like state the Combahee River Collective anywhere. We think that's
Okay, is
probably
Crossix
example of
binding?
severance.
Is Crossix binding? Yes or no?
Crossix, yeah, if Crossix is binding, it's Crossix.
So why didn't Crossix with 1AC count?
Because it wasn't presented in the F. Like that's still severance. Like you had 8 minutes to talk about the F. There has to be some trade-off in terms of what sort of strategies the F produced.
Right. And we
Okay,
also have links to the app specifically. Like our second card in the K argues how like your idea of having the 1AC presented as a form of resistance, combined with your understanding of Black women's fungibility, allows for tokenization within systems of neoliberal capital.
All right, cool. I'm gonna move on to case real quick. What part of the affirmative? So you say that you can't like contest our method. Why not?
Well, oh no, this is just a procedural arguing that like the AF has to have some sort of exportable method by the end of this debate, and the argument that like the AF is good for people in this debate or like it's useful for those in the room is not a reason sufficient to vote affirmative.
All right, glad that it's fun.
So prep. Okay, great.
I should probably mute myself.
Wait, sorry. I think one of you said to mute one of you because you can hear it. Is there an option to do that, or what was the thing?
Oh yeah, we have a separate call. That's all. I was just telling her to mute me on that one.
Oh,
'cause it was
okay,
3
okay, got
minutes
it.
ago.
Okay.
Okay, ending prep.
All right, so the order is going to be case. There's an overview, of course. You don't have to flow it on a separate sheet. So it's going to be case and then the K. Give me 1 second to send it out.
All right, hold on, I'm not there yet.
Give me 1 second.
Come on.
It should be sent. Did I send it?
Sorry, how much prep do you have left?
6:30.
Did you use 1.5 minutes?
Mhm.
I think is the prep 10 here?
Is it?
I'm not sure. I thought it was still 8. Is it 10?
I assume maybe.
Okay, I'll
I
check
haven't heard
the,
anything different.
yeah, okay, we'll just do 8 and then I'll check double check the rules, see if it's different, so that works.
Mm.
Okay,
Okay.
I just got the emails.
Okay. So is everyone good to go? We all got it?
1 second, it's loading. All right.
you said case, okay,
I'm good.
okay, I am ready.
Okay.
Let me mute
I
myself.
sent analytics because I know we all have like weird issues of communication. I don't want there to be like.
Yep, no, oh, big fan here.
Okay. We're all good to go? Yes? Okay. We are not cognitive memory. Our memory is stronger than that. It's withstanding in the face of violence, withstanding in the face of whips and chains and lacerations, withstanding in the face of doctors and medical trials and recognition of what it means to situate my past, my present, my thoughts in the moment of now. Not so they can remember me, not so they can be whole, but so they can remember ourselves and live in our collective brokenness. The affirmative sifts through our individual pieces that we survive in the face of dismemberment, not as individual through a shared space with other way of live. As we all have desire to remember, allows our past to become a beautiful thing and my study joy in our ability to rewrite our stories onto our bodies. That method of remembering is which is that which has been dismembered. We've got the hierarchical system debate in the ways that it's trying to help prevent the resolution for close the possibility for discussion and sale of our arms in the same way on appendages and having spectrum as the way that our culture, our language, our flesh, our limbs have been dismembered and taken from us. So there's not anything because we recover what's the damage has been done. The affirmative is a positive and necessary intervention to disrupt the continued development of black female bodies within the space fantasy. We remain positive in a position of social death resulting in overkill, the fungibility of black deaths within the space phase. We're all about us between who best creates water debate that is inclusive and accessible for minority participation. We don't believe that scenarios we outline a reason why we should lose. We think that our self-esteem mechanism is good and that should be the focal point of the debate. Your role to judge is be an ethical decision maker. Your decision-based calculus must revolve around the ontological entity. This is the app. He's saying it's an exploitable method, but we have outlined multitude of ways in which the app can be exploitable. We have outlined the way the Coleman River Collective is a method of resistance that the affirmative can engage in through our method of remembering. We argue that by using them as a specific way to engage in this form of dialogue, it means that we have real world resources in order to engage in this outside of realm. They say the method testing is good. We agree. And negative valid means that the method that they have assigned is better and solves the impacts of the one. They say that they can't negate, but they have a competitive alternative mechanism. That's I'll get to that in a second. And they say that academic contestation is good and pro black women, but we never disagree with this. And if anything, the act allows for these discussions by introducing discussions about black women's literature. They foreclose the ability for us to have any of these discussions within the first place. And they said that we need to have exportable skills. I already answered that above. So Dr. Losing policies can't account for black identity. The attempt to unify identity results in homogenization of black children, which means the alternative can never resolve the one they see. That's 4 and 15. But being is doubling affecting the results of this place the logic of identity. Black being can never attain adequacy of self-sameness and one who another this way between being another form of being from this is black identity, which they are black identity policies of ancestors like experience with like existence of grammar of identity, unity, equitation, and metaphysical where they appropriate in the terms of conceptions of metaphysical and ontological meditations and the medicine they do these studies they cover like I said. They rule under their own theory. Dr. Lewis spoke of the symbolic and semiotic destruction to preserve the logical whiteness and model features are still all too white. That's Snyder in 16. Dr. Lewis is asked to be correct to leave behind the native traces of the rise of better connection and never go positive design. Nevertheless, the belief is most obvious and everything of the mission and for pessimism who hope to fledging for discussions well with Afro pessimism. The omission of the bishop, but in the source material, the monograph, Challenge to mention the family of Dr. Lewis remains also wet in the law to wet and acting the mode of capitalism. Dr. Lewis analysis because the possibility of woman either attain or create a sort of destruction, person, while the destruction of the Lord remains essentially symbiotic and symbolic depression that appears to still be governed by a logic. Excuse me. Where did it go? The destruction of the one and the assumption symbolic and symbiotic destruction that decreases superior government is logic awareness of which is meant to preserve itself by facing itself to give us a pause. Answer the K. First, the role of battle is between the best peace coping mechanisms for black women who have to live in the face. On dismember, when the creates a better coping mechanism for the subject in question, cross by the framework data book here, and from do both self-defense. There's no reason why we can't engage in these models of community building through resistance against forms of capitalism within the affirmative. The theorization that racialized identity and manifestation of capitalism reproduce in the very neoliberal structure that they critique because it negates forms of racial and gender violence that attempts to commodify those experiences, reasons why it's being solidarity. Their association of resilience with capitalism, extension of commercialization of black and ability bodies are thought actions very beings that we've seen it good to be water sold on large market thought that was the spillage of it is their affirmative is a rejection of their narrow vision, remembering that an act that you can capture by a large entity, but rather a collection of means of engaging with one side and another shared expression of brokenness. And they say that we must win they must win the affirmative starting point is uniquely that and not just something that is absent of something else, and that they have a link of a mission, links of a mission are better than possible to adjudicate because there will always be something that the affirmative doesn't include, and their links are coherent about even if you add them, the premise enough to overcome residual links of the alternative feels because literally everything else they say that we are called an embodiment, but nothing about the affirmative says that we want to regain our ability to become a whole body, but rather it is to say that we need to be able to have access to living in these forms of dismemberment because it's the only way that we create those forms of communal building, because it's saying that we can gain access to embodiment is a claim of humanism that the affirmative can't access. They say that the universal is not inherently oppressive, but the Herman evidence is pretty good on the question about saying that black women live in a position in which the universe will always exist in the form of oppression that is violent towards it, which means that the only way that we can engage and the only way that we can disrupt those systems is to engage in the one you see. And they say that you can go up there, Nyango and Amaro evidence is the which because it assumes that we are something that is able to become modified. They have to win that black woman's logic and labor is something that can be understood in order to be able to become modified, which means that there's either no link or the affirmative is the only way to resolve that because it's the only way to engage to avoid the white gaze. And the theorization that racialized identity is manifestation of capitalism reproduces the liberal structures that critique because it negates any form of racial gender violence that attempts to modify those theories as reasons of participant in solidarity. That's Amendment 14. Neoliberalism speaks too much on government self-care because essentialism on natural racial works and Australian fields and European economy, so we have to hear was not being heard in an individual woman of color that has been such a heterosystem racist system that is independent of separate scholars also called neoliberalism. Competing rather than challenging the structure and the physical good also negate other histories that is taking her struggle in order to suffering no matter good how to struggle for their survival can dismiss them after struggle for their survival coping with it getting by making it might appear as I'm descending to the structure and equality is benefiting the system Japanese but they have to assume that in ways that coping with injustice devices are failing and they're partying that identification with the system is another injustice that they have to cope with it. They say that capitalism leads to fascism and all these other utilitarian impacts, but the world is already entered for people the gas or the negative rhetoric of nuclear war and exchange of predators and hypothetical impact scenarios like ignoring the ongoing structural violence. Reject that from it. It means that the affirmative or the permutation is the only way to resolve any of them. That's Omalati in 84. U.S. Army service is one of the effects of nuclear war that conjects the nuclear war until 2,500 million people will be killed. That's the same number of African people that as a result of that because they feel the world is already entered such as the death culture that live with commence anymore. So because of death as not doing a good job and is a sexual and only way to daily histories of person which people are considered to be murdered nuclear holocausts are declared on all hands and except that that's destroy moral reasoning and absorb deliberate power institutions that ignore ongoing violence in your body. This is also anti-black and reinforces hierarchies. That's also in 15. The body's differently set out as ethical concerns, especially large scale forms of the future for events of the workers and everybody that are currently suffering in WRG because they are excluded from the possession of collectivity that can be suffering up as organ of some of your time as large urgent concerns the institutionalized your body is accused of technical body coordination, large scale future emergency effectively absorb deliberate power of industry and institutions prepared in the person of violence used to no priority. Large scale future emergency, the urgent body becomes literally non-system, not supported with the society states the world that always become more urgent, waiting to demobilize radical reform, the political, the insurrection, impossibility to present by delaying the revolutionary imperative of future moment that is drifting towards infinity, waiting like urgency to determine the impossibility of self-care arguments based on human value of the form of reclaiming urgency for the body in the century centers, class, prison, border, state, borders, refugee camps, geographic responsibility, ethical possibility of belly urgency, the urgent body whose counters are violence are usually from as a private, political, and mundane, and deep political, public and accessory other forms of violence. And there's a macro DA. The broader capitalist movement will bask away from identity, from identity, mass black oppression, and attempt to make the broader Marxist movements pro the papering over our local movements that operate within schools, the debate space, and the level of the individual, thus making any micro-political resistance impossible. Their efforts to reject our localized resistance in order to embrace a broader movement takes out all solvency because we lose the ability to operate micro-politically, which is key to accessing the alternative. And there's a co-option DA. Their attempts to capture and redirect the affirmative to tantamount to Kennedy, involving themselves in civil rights moves, they can internally commandeer resistance groups to strip out everything that opposes the actual threat. The thing is just abundantly just say I'm okay, and this litigate's alternative will be survived by suppress the moment it no longer lines with the model of comfortable, peaceful, white friendly resistance. And this linguists even though that they win, the alternative is distinct from the act itself. The syntax is the only legitimate difference, which shows how language is used as a weapon against those oppressed native blackness or criminals, individuals for having to liberate themselves from the cages. This is the only way to legitimately solve violence by using it as a master place the negative in a position of our oppressor reinforces the impact of the one you see within round. And the theorization of critiquing policies results in endless critiques of seeking to reconstruct a political orientation demands a transversal that starts to ignore the disruptions of political engagement. They assume that their critique and never access change. That's It's Mona Harney 13. This capital having set up for policy dominance of the name civilization, which critiques and initiates the self-defense of those who see how civil unit and settlement and the culture critique allows us to know the ability to reiterate but also the radiation critique the dangers of sociality that are supposed to defend not because of the turn and worse to damage policy because of a turn to policy in the turnout where the 40 years around taking under critique of position of fortification to self-defense level self-preservation taking on the moment the show the armor fight the critical policy becoming sufficient striking the weight in the pockets of resistance tables and allies and made the false image of the critique is then the coming with democracy we're only able to see that when it will become the one that we are our credit are. Okay, I had that as time. I don't know if anybody else had that as time. Please, wait, I had that as time.
Yeah. so
Sorry.
did I.
Yeah, we're good. Corsex?
Give me 1
Uh,
second to get some
oh.
water.
Of course.
I'll mark the last card at fight, I believe.
Fight. Oh, sorry. Which card?
Yeah.
This is
The
the.
Modena Harney card at the bottom of the dock. I marked it at fight.
Yeah, the shawl, the armor of fight.
Yeah.
Cross.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it possible for non-black people to understand black suffering?
I'm not understanding your question. Like,
So, can
what does it mean
the
to understand, I guess? To know
so-
it, to empathize with it, like what is your definition of understanding?
how do non-black people interact with black suffering, or how should they?
I believe that when Black women have discussions about the way that they are put in violent situations, because of the way that the world operates through a lens of anti-Blackness, they should be listened to. The goal of other individuals is to either help Black women find better ways to alleviate their suffering or to allow Black women to have these conversations. We think that the 1AC is a good first step in changing the world into that.
Okay, so the role of non-black people in relation to black suffering, let me get this straight, is to either alleviate harms and anti-blackness and or
Yes.
allow for conversation.
Right, we would argue that you still have access to that. You could just say that the K operates as a form of alleviating that pressure.
Okay.
You would have to, the alternative is obviously 1AC.
That's perfectly fine then. How does, so if the idea is allowing for for people to have this conversation, what is the role of the judge in determining the act is a good method?
Whoever wins the flow on whichever method is better, whether or not the impacts of the 1AC are resolved by the end of the round. Once
So
again,
how
in order
are
for it to be a negative
arguments
ballot, you would have
weighed? How do you
I'm
weigh
sorry?
arguments as a non-black judge in relation to black suffering?
Right. So once again, like I said, as non-Black individuals, your main priority in this round is to be an anti-ethical decision maker, which means that the only way that you can make those decisions is based upon a system of anti-ethics that will reject
all right.
frameworks that wouldn't prioritize Black violence. We argue that through like your impact lens of saying these existential threats, such as like fascism or nuclear war or climate change, are all more Black suffering,
Okay,
which is the reason
that's what I need. Thank you. Why read the 1AC in this instance?
because we think that the conversations that we foster are good. We think that having conversations like the one that we're having now allows us to fine tune our activism, which
So
means
is
that
the
we get
purpose
to,
of the 1AC to create the conversation in this debate?
yes, and we think
Okay.
that the judge should know whether or not the conversations that we create and the method that we advocate is good.
All right. Is there any reason this conversation has to happen within debate specifically?
We think that debate is one of the many places in which anti-Blackness, specifically anti-Blackness towards Black women, happens. We think that not having conversations in debate would be very irresponsible, especially considering that debate within itself is a microcosm of society.
Okay. You made the argument last cross-ex that spill-up claims are bad. So let me get this straight. Are there material like changes that occur post-reading of the app or like post this conversation?
No, we think that those types of conversations are bad because it places us in a violent form of imagining, but we think that the ways that we outline the way that our method can materially impact things outside around isn't a flip thing, but rather says it's the way that we can model it outside of the room, such as the Combine River Collective. That's not saying,
Okay, so just like modeling off of these conversations is the idea.
Right, so we think that having these conversations allows us to model how it should look like when we actually engage in that activism out of the round.
All right, I have that as time. We're taking prep. Anthony, you're muted.
I'm gonna assume that's a yes, so I'm starting prep time.
I was going to say, sorry, no prep. I was going to send out
Oh,
the analytics.
okay.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I'll mute myself.
Actually, no, just kidding. I'll start prep 8 starting. Okay. 604. And it's the K. There's no overview. It's the line by line. Okay.
How much prep did you have left?
604. Wait, sorry, can you all hear like the lawn mowing outside? If it's loud, I'll see if I can close the windows. Is that okay? That's good. Okay. Okay.
Oh, the
Is
doc
anyone,
sent
is that, sorry, what?
Did you send out a doc? I didn't get it.
Yeah, I think I sent it. Let me double check again.
Oh, I just got it. Never mind,
okay.
I just got it.
Okay, is anyone not ready?
Hold on 1 sec. Okay, so you said just the K proper?
Just the K proper, yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. I'm good.
Okay. Two AC1, the framework argument, their practice needs to be explorable, or else the judge cannot arbitrarily sort of create a metric to judge which arguments value others. They said in cross-ex that non-black people should have a conversation with the affirmative. That requires a stable locus point in order we can, so we can garner a stable set of literature bases and stable set of links that disagree with the affirmative. The anti-ethics argument about the Curry argument, Curry's argument is that ethics, as it is right now, is centered around reclaiming whiteness, but the Amaro evidence says that adopting a lens of racial capitalism sort of reclaims the levels of decision calculus and says that we should improve the lives of everyone insofar that anti-blackness is connected with the levers of power that enable other forms of oppression to happen in the first place. They sort of coping mechanism under the rope of the ballot. I'm going to do the aestheticization link here. The F is a cultural project governed in the world of economics, a form of cultural artifact that produces communities of care. The impact of those communities, but our argument is that the impact of those communities are predetermined by capitalism. The what I see articulates themselves as a performance of resistance. Anyone who has a card because they picked up a card can understand the F, or anyone in this room can listen to the F. They don't know how to articulate what that, they don't know how to articulate that within a movement outside of the space. The impact is commodification. It gives neoliberalism another form of false transgression to provide the illusion of resistance. Example is the Afropunk Music Festival, which meant to celebrate Black community and care, but last year revealed that Afropunk sold out to corporations that underpaid and exploited their workers. This turns every part of the affirmative because old people only gain advantage insofar that there is a form of an audience. So this was pretty clear during cross-ex while they're reading this F to two Asians and a white judge. They cannot produce worlds for themselves because they fail to understand that bad worlds are always tutored by capitalism. 2AC2, the perm debate. At first, there's a momentum to set here. The AF regurgitates anxiety within political engagement. There was a time frame argument. The AF slows the alternative down too much and 2C's powers from fascists, which is why the alternative is for a good immediate strategy is good. There's an infinite inclusivity which reinforces capitalist domination. The second is the theory argument. The permutation is a theoretically illegitimate argument. There's no perms in method debates, but this is key to education and advocacy skills. Making a decision between two independent strategies against capitalism is key to iterative testing within revolutionary circles. This is a voter for fairness because method debates are infinitely permeable. There is an opportunity cost to preserve stable negative ground. This severs out of their theory, which is a severance, which is kills a voter for education and makes debatable impossible for the negative. I'll do the link debate here. The links are just adds to the permutation. They say there's a link of omission. That's not true. I'll give there's a localization link here. The F's praxis of hyper-localization is reactionary. This sees the universal and eliminates possibility to reclaim humanism to create a sustainable world. They think communities can choose models of resistance, which ignores how capitalism is a coercive domination structure that determines everyone's relationship to the world. They cannot opt out of capitalism and only organize against it. This turns victim blaming because only the AF understands themselves in relation to capital. They can only produce small local zones of survival. The impact is redeployment. Look at Basseville, Louisiana, where they rallied against toxic waste dumps from their homes in Six City by speaking out, but the power plant only moved to another neighborhood of color, which proved that they might produce some temporary zone within the space, but capitalism will always redirect itself to it at different locations by exporting fearing violence abroad. Also, this answers their embodiment argument because insofar that there's a uniqueness question that the left is too horizontal right now. They turn toward as the term of embodiment pedagogy strategically misutilizes things like strategies like abolition and abolition of the police force. They say that institutionalization is bad and a universal abstract thought is bad. We say it's good. So there's a complete clash in this case. They say the permutation can overcome residual links or the alternative fails. No, that was the momentum decided to above because it slows them down too much. They read the ominous evidence about how we reproduce capitalism. I cut that card. At the end of the card, it says /A Liang. That is a misreading of the evidence. The ominous is talking in the sense of sort of the black women and how other women of color use their sort of psychic energy to create forms of catharsis. That misunderstands. We agree that black women have a finite level of energy, but we agree that energy should be channeled towards a broader political strategy, which means that there is no sort of emotional labor to said. They read the Omelot 84 evidence about the world already ended. I'll do the impact comparison here. First, capitalism is in the midst of a crisis. The question before you is whether the left will organize communism or let fascism take its place. There is a uniqueness question that should frame your prioritization of the space. Capitalism will collapse by 2015 into right-wing fascism. The right is using the strategy of scope and skill. That's the Shapiro evidence. The impact is extinction, rallying around the flag, systemic environmental degradation, increased hotspots, climate change. We don't need extinction to win this debate. Fascism exacerbates structural violence through militarizing the police, expanding the prison industrial complex, making it difficult to organize for revolution. They say util is bad. Yes, they say util is bad. No, life is a prerequisite to valuing things because you need to be alive to experience it. Fearing death is necessary for value. Conceiving of finitude is necessary. The only reason why the sort of things we can ascribe a value to the first place, it's because we don't experience it all the time, which is why life is a prerequisite, because there's no inability to cultivate bones of catharsis if there is a uniqueness question of extinction coming now. They read the macro dissent and says that we paper over local forms of movement. I'll do the alternative explanation here, but I will guarantee you that we do not paper over local moments of survival. We affirm vertical party organizations, which communities with communist theory and praxis, which collects local institution building with the global movements. This requires a mode of accountability to correct bad praxis and leftist movements We endorse movements like the African Movement Socialist Party located in Florida. They gained power from creating reparation programs and building mutual aid. The way they did that is having a strict hierarchical leadership, i.e. all the white people trying to gain solidarity exist underneath the African Party. They organize them. It makes it impossible for white people to determine the direction of the movement, which is why in that particular instance, that form of black Marxist strategy is good. The AF doesn't do that. There was a trade-off. They talked about the Combahee River Collective in the what but nowhere in the AF did it gave a sort of a blueprinted strategy of how we should orient energy and sort of gather around a political purpose towards a sort of political solution. They give the alternative solve the AF, but not all the way around. Also, they have conceded the uniqueness question that the modern day left is locally fragmented, which prevents scaling upwards to achieve political power. Even if the alternative is imperfect, it is the only option left to take power away from fascists. Also, there's a gatekeeping argument here. The alternative does not let everyone in this room join the movement. I asked during classes, my partner asked during classes, how do non-black people sort of engage in the movement, which proves that things like the judge and things like other debaters can slow the AF down by stealing their evidence or stealing their cards, which co-ops their energy, which proves that only the alternative creates a strict accountability mechanism that people with no investment in the black community are not allowed to join. If, for example, this terrible, cops can like the AF's performance, or racists who can also sort of steal the affirmative, the alternative provides a mode of accountability based on a political line, based on Marxist theorization that demonstrates a clear mutual exclusivity between the AF and the alternative. They say there's a co-option that said here, no. It is true that black people were kicked out of communist movements in the past, but those horizontal movements without any democratically centrist mechanism of accountability. The alternative is vertical organization, not horizontal. The Red Blue in 2016, there was a vertical organization structure. They kicked someone out for instrumental in the organization who was anti-black as shit. The only reason why they were able to do that is that because the party was able to determine a specific set of rules and obligations that they had to abide by. The AF lets everyone in. There's no mechanism as to why people should be removed from the party. The linguistics argument, I'll do that here. First, we should not abandon the language of the human. We don't abandon the human or power relations, instead seize them to make praxis. It gets you more than simply improving the world. Cross-sex proves the links. Their cards and interpretation of power are anti-humanist. That was the Warren evidence as to read why the blackness does not occupy a space of identity. Humanism is good and cruel. Pessimism is worse. That's the Williams evidence. Only the alternative demands and reshapes the political economy. They don't engage in the material which allows the right to define what the human ought to be or what the human can be, which is why black people are sort of targeted under the racialized capitalist lens. The Moten evidence, endless critique. I did that above on the alternative explanation. If anything, it links to the AF too, which is why it's not endless critique, because theory implicates praxis. Sorry, give me like a few seconds to grab water. I'll be back. Okay, I'm good.
You open?
Yeah.
All right, so I guess my first question is on the linguistics, DA. So you say that we shouldn't abandon the language of the human. What is the language of the human?
So it's like the ideology of humanism in an abstract sense, right? So we have made an argument that the AF's anti-humanist policies don't necessarily reclaim or reshape the political economy, which we think are important levers of power for the alternative to change things like redistribute resources.
I guess I'm a
and
little
change
confused.
healthcare.
Like how, okay, that's fine. I guess you say that like there have been instances in the past in which Black individuals have been kicked out of movements, correct?
Yes, movements failed because they
Why
were
should we
anti-Black.
trust you?
Because
Why
the
should we
Amaro
trust you?
evidence outlines that there is a consensus within Black authors in the ways in which we
Specifically
engage
will read
theoretical.
okay, you two will specifically read arguments concerning the positionality of Blackness as non-Black individuals. You all have already shown us that you will commodify Black individuals, so why should we trust you two specifically?
Well, okay, so first of all, during cross-ex, you said the role for non-Black individuals is to sort of create clash or in conversation with the affirmative. We think the alternative does that in a good way, in which the Amaro evidence outlines that a
Answer
better.
my question. Why should I trust you?
Why
You say
should you
like
trust? It's a
commodification and all
bait.
these other things are bad. You've already performed that in other rounds. Why should we trust you? How are you not how do you not recreate that?
Okay, first, like the other rounds thing, I think it begs a question of research. We don't necessarily think that sort of are like or like in this case the alternative is bad. Obviously that is up to debate. But in order to sort of adjudicate whether the alternative is bad, good, it requires historical examples, right? If you can prove like throughout history or like our model of leadership produces those forms of exclusion, like yes, that's a dissent to the alt. But
Okay.
our argument, we have given examples of how successful organizations have worked.
What does it mean to commodify the 1AC? Like, is it just what you said with like other people reading our cards? Like, I'm not understanding. What is commodification in this instance?
It can be a lot of things. It could be like other teams, like watching the debate or, like stealing cards. Those are examples. But in a broader institutional sense, our evidence says that.
I need to know like what it is. Like what is commodification?
So the localization argument says that when we create strategies based off of individual forms of community engagement, that fails to understand the ways that those communities are impacted by the flows of capital.
Okay, cool. You have this DA. In what way does the affirmative slow down the ability to create communities of resistance? Is that not what the 1AC does?
Well,
like how does it? I'm just not understanding what we do to slow anything down.
Is this all the gatekeeping argument?
No. The slowing down argument was a dissent I made on the permutation. So
I'm asking, how do we slow things down? I didn't get a warrant.
It's the localization link. It's the localization and the like folk politics stuff. So the argument is that when you sort of create forms, when you localize the movement towards one that is strictly within the debate space, it fails, or I guess it doesn't sort of create an out of round exportation of those skills.
I hope that is calm, but okay. All right, got it.
All right, the lawnmower in my front yard is also in full swing, so please don't mind that. The 1 hour is set. The order was case straight down. Yeah, those are the most coherent walks that I'm able to send. There will be stuff that isn't like word for word on there. And yeah, same as before. Huh?
Sorry, I was distracted by the lawnmower. You say it was just case straight down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Case straight down. There's no overview. Yeah, I'm not going on the 2AC overview. All right. And yeah, tell me to pause if something goes wrong. Is it?
Where are you starting?
Oh, just the 2AC one. Just
okay.
the two 2AC answers.
Yeah,
and
no,
then I'll
that's
go
fine.
on to All right.
You're good.
Is anyone not ready? The top of the case, they read two generic takeouts of Dr. Lewis. This is not what we're defending. We can agree that Culp's end conclusion is problematic and is parallel to Afro-pessimism, but that's not what we're critiquing the Afro. We can argue that Culp is overly pessimistic, which is why the alt resolves that through vertical organizing through the party. We only read the portions of Dr. Lewis that actually directly problematize their connectivity arguments and through their two AC crossings, and I'll get to that now. Extend the entirety of the connectivity and the co-option module outlined in the first Culp card and the tag of the last one that I read at the end of the 1NC. Protect the 2NR, don't let the 1AR make new arguments because the 2AR makes the last speech because they functionally conceded it in the entirety of the 2AC arguments on case. The 1AC conforms to the discursive system with the suffering of black women because the system I named and use as a tool for colonial knowledge gathering. The system of confession co-option plays the suffering their press. We have several warrants to this. First, we have warriors this to their notion. Their African possessive represents history of blackness within the telling of the 1AC, which only reinforces the dominance of neoliberal regime of knowledge collection. This assumption that the 1AC can retell the history of black women within this space to provoke a discussion, provokes the neoliberal appetite to consume other cultures, and only serves to obtain colonial privileges, reparations, i.e. the bell. The 1AC thus becomes a pocket of suffering designed to affirm the system of confession, which the suffering the confessor is continually affirmed and forgiven by the judge of those of power. The 1AC provokes the neoliberal appetite for possession, which replicates the same logic that it criticized. An example of this would be like Kent State, which caused national with their protests, would cause national attention after the students were killed, became spectacles of pain, which were placed on posters of appetite free speech, which is a Turns case argument. We don't need to win the thesis of the case, win any arguments on the academy flow or the connectivity links that we have on case because they functionally conceded this. And if nothing else, you can put neg on presumption if we can prove that the app is net worse for black people. Second is we have a dependency term because the app recreates a cycle of violence within the debate because the judge grants authority to the oppressors, especially true within 1AC cross-sects when they make the argument that the judge is necessary to affirm the method required in the 1AC. This creates a predicated power relation which the judge grants authority to press, and once the authority is granted, the most press comes the debate argument to be sold on the debate records assumed again and again. This is especially true in the context of non-black judge, whether the form demands interpretation rely on normative understandings as well. They don't provide the judge or the other team a new language which understand the grammar of suffering for black people, especially true when they don't when their only role for non-black people or judges is to either alleviate material the material suffering of black people or to facilitate a type of discussion without understanding how black suffering works. This incorporation debate makes the 1AC fungible, allows non-black people to represent meaning onto their performance. This form of representation allows for neoliberal capture. This is because they require the existence of master academy, noted affirmatively, which recreates authority of the press and causes dependency. Third, we have a surveillance. This the methodology 1AC sustains a form of hegemony within the academy itself, which pays for universities to sustain debate. The 1AC performance account shackled to academia because 2000 debate on like the university death camp reform, but a factor of meeting which both for the Africans and both for the murder of the volunteer, the creates vaccination paradigm with the app discloses a little bit of resistance pedagogy every time a surveillance cameras debates got listed to 1AC, which allows the university each understand the 1AC resistance strategy, which blunts any revolutionary power. This catalogs the 1AC to so FBI surveillance operation ultimately contains the app kills any spillover. And there's also a double turn under portrayals of narratives in the use of the 1AC. A narrative specifically is based on the chronological possession, which specifically with personal experiences in order to tell a story, but nothing in the 1AC has to do with overcoming this trauma of them specifically or any black person specifically. In fact, they specifically deny that in the 1AC cross-sects when they say that the 1AC isn't about any specific black woman. It's just a bunch of different proses, which isn't the story of any specific person. Either the 1AC isn't an actual narrative, which means they don't solve, or nor did they get a perm on the K flow, or it is, in which case that's super turns or academy links on the K and the case flow because they don't have any specific narratives to be able to bring out of the academy. And we also have a link to their notions of communication and especially the 2AC cross-section example of how in which the only role that non-black people have in the space is to create discussion, which presumes that discourse and protest is the basis of how we create progress. That's our second cult card on the 1AC, which is the basis of democracy. This method of demand and having discussion in order to create revolution replicates the same ideology of democracy politics because it assumes that, there's a transcendent figure of the judge, which parallels the idea of the government, in which is willing to listen to the act and grant its demand by allowing for its methodology to be affirmed in the space, which is a form of predicated power relationship between the state and the neoliberal subject, and which reproduces the structure of power and difference because the state must grant the authority and grant its authority to the oppressed. There are two impacts of this. First is that this recreates the notion that we're able to solve non-violently through democratic discourse, which sidelines any actual revolutionary strategy. This is a check back to their ideas of how having these discussions allows us to model an actual creation of a political subject, because these discourses actually end up sidelining that revolutionary strategy. That's our second cult evidence. And secondly, transparency of the app's discourse ensures co-option. That's their surveillance. This out on the academy flow because it legitimizes structure of debate in order to legitimize these types of arguments. Even if they say that to create a new form of discourse to challenge the state, our critique is the best level of form and not the 1AC's method. We think that debate activity which the 1AC takes place in is a space where discourse and truth testing is glorified. And we have a cruel optimism linked to their portrayals of suffering through the Spiller evidence, which is the second evidence in their 1AC, which details the destruction of the body, is a graphic description of the destruction of the black woman's body within the context of debate. And the affirmative to destroy deploys these types of rhetorical historical tropes of bodies to categorize like empathetic responses, specifically the ballot and the judge and affirmation of their method, which are apparently the strange of life. There's a massive impact of commodification because their use of these bodies specifically, which is distinct from the one NC, makes them cruelly attached to the debate. That's not the O because we don't use bodies specifically.
All right, we're gonna take that.
Okay. Wait, is your partner here?
I'm here.
Okay.
I have 6:30, right?
Yes, that's what I have. Starting now.
All right, and prep, I have this at 152.
Oh, 152.
Hello?
you said?
Yeah, 152. The order is going to be case, then the K. Let me see. As far as the analytics, I'm gonna send out what it is, but it's not gonna be like verbatim. So actually, you know what? I'm talking slow enough. They're not even really like analytics. It's straight down. So case, there's an overview on top, and then K proper.
All right. And you're not sending analytics?
Yeah, there's not a lot.
That's fair. That's
But also
fine.
I talk slow, I'm Fred. So
Yeah, no.
you should be fine. All right. Anyone already?
Hold on. Okay, move. Okay,
Oh, yeah, I should be.
All right. sorry, we had some dog interference there. We're good.
All right. The affirmative says through individual pieces that tie our fantasies to reality, ties my past to my present, so I can situate myself in the moment, and now so that I can survive in the face of dismemberment and not survive alone, but through shared experience, survival of living will limit the impact is fungibility. Black female bodies have been maximized for productivity while also being seen as commodities via the process of dismemberment. The role of the judge is to act as the anti-code decision maker and should vote for the team who create their survival strategies for Black women. We will win that we only need to win that our method is a good idea within the debate space. The round 13 card here is going to be pretty damning because we argue that Black women should be able to engage in these forms of survival strategies in which we so-called dance with ourselves. We need to take the lead on these actions. Don't allow them to do this in the 2 and R and argue about how they are the best starting point. But I'll get more to that on the K. And the 1AC is an act of remembering our child. Black women are always seen as weapons to the anti-Black world. The way we speak, the way we act, just being here alone. The birth canal is the birthing of the weapon to the anti-Black world. By remembering we are creating communities of love that allow us to challenge hegemonic structures placed upon us. And this is going to be a prerequisite to any of their arguments about how we need to challenge neoliberalism. If we don't have access to these levers of power, that means that we'll never be able to change anything. They can't win case without winning that it's possible for Black women to actually have access to their forms of macro politics and like larger socialist movements. And only through creating collectives like the Combahee River Collective can we access this. That's in our over evidence and affirmative ballot. That means that you as a judge think our process of remembering is the best option in round to help Black women come to terms and provide relief for us. On to wherever you have the like to lose this. So first on the productivity specifically, Hartman turns. So as long as the negative maintains a world in which Black women are subjects that are fungible, then commodification is non-unique, which means the only way to resolve the productivity link is through an affirmative ballot. They need to prove that they can resolve any of the metaphysical violence that's the root cause of the violence they highlight in order to gain access to any of their claimed solvency. On a deluge, they assume that the affirmative solely relies on a method of conversation with no engagement goal. Cross-apply for cross-text that we think the point of discussion, or at least the discussion we're having in this round, should be to test whether or not our specific method is good and could be exported. They conceded several claims in the 2AC about how the language of Black women isn't something that can be captured. They can always attempt to commodify, but they fail to commodify the specific community building that the affirmative garners. Even if others attempt to create the community, they can't access ours. That's seen when we have other debaters that read things like Afropets and they don't understand what's going on. On to the surveillance DA. We've already turned spill-up claims. We argue that one spill-up claim, specifically in the context of when they have like big extinction impacts are bad, don't allow them to skew out of this on the K debate. But this means that we engage in models of cruel optimism, because when we assume that we have our hands on the levers of power, this is net worth. They criticize this. However, they do nothing to change this. And on to the K flow. Yeah. All right. Reiterate the affirmative. The role about is to vote for the team who best calls for Black lives and allows the creation of alternative modes of living and preserve Black being. They don't get a new 2 in our role about, which means you default R. This one being an easy affirmative ballot, and we outweigh their impact. Structural violence always assumes extinctional risk calculation because the road is already over for people of color. That's our allowed 84 card. And the affirmative is a necessary prerequisite to future existential threats because it means that Black women are brought to the level of social life, which allows for extinction. If extinction comes first, then we win on probability and time frame because the lives of Black women are a constant threat. And even if they say they don't need to win the extinction impact, don't allow them fascism, because that means that the impacts on the structure that create Black social death still exist. They don't do anything to actually challenge this. Means that the affirmative alternatives can never solve for any of the impacts outlined in the 1AC. And they've dropped the entirety of this case page, which means you still weigh the affirmative against K. If we win that Black lives and survivability are a prior question in this debate, then you vote F, and the permutation solves. We're winning that there's zero risk of link. We can reject the notions of futures and socialities by living in opaque communities that are above the levels of co-option. There's no severance. You can extend our Omer 13 card Omer 12 card here, in which we say narratives remember images of common experiences and struggle, and it's about reintegrating traumatic memories into collective cultural memory to cope with. Cross-text is binding. They've already conceded that, which means that the example we use of the Combahee River Collective is just that, an example. It doesn't need to be in the 1AC for it to be valid, and we still give them an outline plan, and we get perms in a method debate. Perms are set the competition, which is key to internal link. All their arguments on clash. If they want the ability to gain education and fairness, and we get a permutation, and they still fail to prove that cap falls for the violence outlined in the 1AC, unless they can give you a specific way in which capitalism is a root cause. If they do this, this is going to form a chain of equivalencies, which is violent to Black women and not not only proves that they don't want to genuinely listen to us, which is something we argued in cross-ex is necessary, but this means that they become ideological substitutes for anti-blackness, and any reason you think that they're winning their case flow is only a hieroglyphic that allows them to shift focus away from the spirit of the black, which has been ingrained into cultures all over the world, and instead place that attention on systems of structure in society and not the ideological structures of society. And you can extend the macro DA, broader capitalist movements away from our identity, mass, black oppression. We already asked how can we trust them during process. They don't have an answer for this except for, well, these movements were bad, but we won't. We already argued that their performance within debate round shows that they are anti-black. There's no reason for us as black women to put ourselves in an inherently more violent position. Their localization link proves their efforts to reject our localized resistance in order to embrace the broader movement takes out their offense because we lose the ability to operate micropolitically. Also, I'll just use examples. The black women are always rejected. For example, Angela Davis and Shaka Khan. You can extend the co-option DA here. It's going to answer any of their other permutations. Any combination of our methods results in co-option. You can't use the master's tools to dismantle their house. The state will never allow for black women to join broader macro movements. So there's no reason why black women as a community can't do everything that's involved within the alternative. They don't have a reason why any of these are mutually exclusive, and there's no warrant to any of the double terms or the momentum DA. So don't allow them to create a warrant in the 2 and R.
All right, we have 604.
604, yep, starting now.
Also, Anthony, check your messages. I have that as time.
Yeah.
All
Is the judge there?
right, we'll wait on.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Perfect.
It's gonna be K in case.
All right, buddy, you gotta move again. Come on. Yep, move. So you said K, then K. Hold on.
K in case.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some water real quick.
Oh. What? Oh. All right, is everyone good?
One is
We're good.
Okay. All right, okay. I am not going to go for the alternative, but the links do turn the case, and it makes it harder for movements against capitalism, which is why the AF is worse than the status quo. That's the aestheticalization link. The affirmative articulates themselves as a performance of resistance that sort of creates an art that articulates themselves in opposition to the set of wounded attachments and pains that they only understand themselves in, defined insofar by these sort of oppressive systems that they articulate. The impact of this is commodification, because neoliberalism, and it gives neoliberalism another form of false transgression to provide the illusion of resistance. They have conceded the Afro-Punk Music Festival impact, which means that exploitation, that sort of corporations can corrupt movements like Afro-Punk that underpaid and exploit their workers. That turns every part of the affirmative. That means only people can gain advantage when they are not in the ones when people can gain advantage when they are the ones in the audience. The sort of the impact level of this was extremely light. Insofar that the Umlaut, their articulation of the Umlaut evidence is that Black people can sort of experience social lives in forms of social death, but they have not made a claim as to why sort of the biological sort of precondition to living means that those things cannot be experienced, which is why material violence outweighs capitalism is collapsing and fascism will take over. It causes extinction and it leads to the exacerbation of all forms of structural violence. So even if it's true that social death is proof, making structural violence worse turns gratuitous violence, because it means that it is impossible for Black people to have their own eminent forms of power within their communities. The impact of the AF will get worse after 2050, and which is why the AF sort of slows it down. Also, they have mishandled the embodiment link. The argument is that this prevents a theorization of the abstract, i.e. the precondition for effective communist politics is performance within the space. There's the uniqueness argument that the left is diffused and horizontal is the reason why fascists have been successful, because there is no universal left to win resistance, no institution, and everyone in the resources that need to fight back. Their performance proves the link. The horizontal organizing reason is the reason why they fail. They don't have a sort of an organizational structure to determine the parameters of their movement, which is why you should be skeptical of the way their organization plays out. Even if they let everyone into their movement, there's a co-option impact and happening into the debate space. The folk politics hyper localization argument is what wins us debate. It relies on local zones of survival that creates a catharsis. So it means that Black people don't happen to be in those that Black people who don't happen to be in those zones incapable of reacting for the violent next thing. The losses, like for example, the Louisiana nuclear power plant, that proves how oppressive institutions will just redeploy themselves elsewhere. That turns their representation and form arguments, because they might prove eminent forms of representation, but they leave everyone else defenseless, which is why the status quo is preferable, because that makes it worse. It produces the app produces forms of representational energy production that are universal, and everyone else and access it regardless of the relationship towards music. Any answer to the permutation, there's no perm. The alt debate, since I'm not going for it, but they don't get disads that sort of alt, because we're not forcing you to join the sort of a communist party the argument is that the F sort of makes movements against capitalism worse, i.e. there are movements in the status quo right now, but the F sort of slows them down via the localization, like the argument about Angela Davis being excluded, that is not in the context of our alternative because we didn't extend it, but rather it says that current movements such as those in New York and the red bloom examples are already moving against capitalism, but the F sort of redeploys and it gives more energy to neoliberal captures. Go to case. We're going for the conceded narrative double turn of the dependency term on the academy module. There's a double turn in their portrayal of narratives and the use of the 1EC within the space of debate. And the 1EC is built off of the notion of using narratives for its solvency. That's their OMOR 12 card, which argues that text from specific women about their specific trauma solves. But nothing in the 1EC is a narrative. A narrative is based off of chronological progression, specifically within personal experience to tell a story. Nothing about the 1EC sort of overcomes this trauma. In fact, it only defines themselves in opposition and it attaches it to the wound of trauma. It's just a bunch of different approaches with the suffering of Black women as a whole, but it does not tell the story of a specific person, especially true when the 1EC explicitly rejects the idea that the AF is about someone specifically. Either the 1EC isn't an actual narrative, which means they can't solve, or it's just supercharges our academy linked to the 1EC. The AF recreates a cycle of violence within another debate because the judge grants authority to the oppressed, and once this authority is granted, the voice of the oppressed becomes another debate argument to be sold on the big argument, ready to be consumed again and again. Every argument that they made about us as non-Black people co-opting Black scholarship proves our argument because it proves that the AF only feeds into the channel of debate, commodifying argumentation, which is why voting negative on presumption proves that the AF needs to uphold a burden of solvency. They need to depart from the status quo. If the AF makes it worse, you can vote negative on the presumption. Ultimately, the judge has the ultimate authority, as the story would have actually happens is told over and over within debate space and conceived that there is a dependency, hierarchical space or hierarchical relationship insofar that the judge gives validity or sort of has the authority to grant the 1EC's confession. The impact is unending co-option, makes the status quo worse.
Okay, we're gonna run the rest of our prep. I had us at 2.
Wait, is it just me or can I not hear what the judge is saying?
I said we're running the rest of
Oh
our
yeah,
prep. And
yeah.
I
No,
had,
I was just in agreement.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I saw you were
Yeah.
saying something and I couldn't hear it. All right, we're good. 2.
so it's gonna be case, then the K. I guess just straight down.
You're echoing through someone's mic. I'm not sure whose.
Is it
Actually-
it gone?
Oh, yeah, it's gone now. Yeah.
Okay. Is anyone not ready? We're all good to go? Okay. The affirmative begins conversations with Black women who are uniquely positioned in society. It's one thing to be Black, but also a woman was positive as a walking paradox. That was Expelliarmus 87 evidence. It means that we're subjected to rejected and rejected vertical and quantity, which results in overkill. Through our process of remembering, we create the ability for Black women to have access to social life because we escape the violence from homogenization that placed upon Black women that recreates us as fundamental subjects to be brought and sold within a larger market. Without poetic interventions are key for Black women to gain access to having their life and sociality placed at the forefront of discussion. That was the conceded Brown and Helper evidence. Remembering and creating alternative paths to descriptions of the demarcation that are placed upon our flesh means that the affirmative is a positive and necessary intervention to access any form of change. That yet to provide any reason why the affirmative doesn't resolve, which means that you grant us 100% risk of the absolvency. You mean to default to our role of the ballot and the judge. Your role is to evaluate the route through a series of anti-ethical decision making. This means that you should prioritize which model debate allows for Black inclusivity and accessibility. That means that if the end of the 2 and R, you don't see a direct version of debate that allows for Black women to place their orientation to the one at the forefront of discussion, then you vote them down because they don't fit under our model. We've conceded any form of self-esteem that the affirmative may have. The role of the ballot is to vote for a team that best allows for the survivability of Black minorities within the debate space. So having contested either one of our roles, which means that even if you grant them any weight of the case, you start to evaluate the round through our roles, which means it's an easy ass ballot. If by the end of the debate you don't see a way in which the 2 and R resolved any of the impact scenarios that were outlined on the case page throughout the entirety of the debate, then it's a reason to reject the team. They conceded the Hartman evidence, which is pretty damning on the question of commodification. The negative has yet to provide any world in which the metaphysical violence placed upon Black women ends, which means that any link gained from productivity commodification cannot be resolved by the alternative, and is a unique reason why the negative fails. Even if they kick the alternative, they haven't provided a way in which they end any of this form of violence, which means that they're only recreating forms of status quo, which means that there's a better way to, that the affirmative is the only way to resolve any of that form of violence, because our community building and the ways to avoid the white gaze is the only way to reduce any of that violence. Either Black women are forced to join their larger macro moments and results in overkill because we're the only ones that are forced to do all the work, or Black women don't join the movement and the negative fails one because they can only replicate forms of anti-Black violence. And they say that we result in co-option, but they conceded the Brown and Over evidence, which is specific to the ways in which Black women can use poetics and storytelling in order to find each other through our brokenness, which means that any form of co-option they claim can happen doesn't directly come close to possibility for Black women to engage in that form of underground community building. There's no impact to co-option. The descriptions of co-option are just examples of the status quo. I did that work about the engagement of the affirmative, specifically allows for us to engage in these forms of underground movements that allows us to create communities that escape that form of commodification and co-option, because we are not living within those same circles. And they say that we don't use that our use of narratives isn't good, but the Omer evidence specifically talks about the way that narratives aren't simply describing an issue at hand, but rather telling stories and allowing us to engage in that form of storytelling is good. The affirmative within itself describes the way that Black women, specifically within the debate space, are treated and told to that they are not able to have these discussions, that they need to shut up and shut down, that the only way that they can have these forms of discussion is to sit on the sidelines. The affirmative within itself is a conversation between us to other Black women within the debate space, which means that it's not simply a narrative by describing the way that Black women operate within the world, but rather telling and engaging in this form of storytelling in which we are describing the ways that we have been treated within rounds, and saying that it's a time for us to disrupt that form of engagement. And they say that the judge has the ultimate authority in this hierarchy, but it's not saying that the judge voting affirmative says that our method solves it. Rather, we are arguing that we already have access to solvency. We're saying that our method is something that should be affirmed. We're saying that our vote on app ballot represents the affirmative being a good strategy in order to disrupt forms of metaphysical violence that the negative doesn't grapple with. Onto the K. You're voting affirmative on the K. Extend the role of the ballot, which is both for the team that best creates survival strategies for Black women. All their link work serves as independent links to the affirmative. On the aestheticization and co-option links, they're not going to win this because we've classified from the top of the 1AC case. So people are assuming that they understand Blackness as non-unique. They haven't answered how the alternative is capable of challenging anti-Black structures, which means that they're the only team who solves their method, which still allows the structure of capitalism to exist. It's not enough to claim certain facets of capitalism is to anti-Black violence. The negative is falsely access linked to a chain of equivalency of how other subjects experience capitalism. They drop that anti-Black who's supposed to come a prior, because when we turn to other focuses, Black women are always left on the back burner. And coming out of this 2 and R, they still haven't answered what it means to literally commodify Black women's narratives. Black people reading Black narratives out loud isn't enough to strip the solvency of the 1AC. And there's on the localization DA, or on the localization link, they've just recontextualized the meaning in the new 2 and R. Just recontextualize meaning. So new to AR contextualization is justified. Don't allow them to say that we do us and they do them. This is independent reason why we need survival strategies, meaning that they're failing to answer let's see the next question of the debate about what should be about what Black women should do in the face of gratuitous violence. You can extend the conceded macro DA here, which dropped in the sense that Black women try to join these communist movements outside of Black communities. We are turned away. This networks for us, which means that we need to gain access to our own form of liberalism in order to gain access to any form of change or violence that they might create, because it means that if under any model we are rejected at point at the forefront of those discussions, especially in a world in which they highlight utilitarian violence as a prior facet, means that we are always going to be rejected, which means that the only way they can create any form of rejection of that violence for a Black woman is through an act ballot. And the Omilani 84, extend the Omilani 84 evidence here. When we join the movements, only existential impacts matter, which ignores the social death of Black women. They say that life is a prior question, but when they ignore other forms of metaphysical violence that happen prior to solving those impacts, it means that they will always fail, which means the only way they can relieve any of those forms of violence is through an act ballot. Okay.
Debate.
Hey, good round.
Good debate.
All right.